All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Cambridge University Press sponsored webinar. Happy New Year. Jenny and I are so pleased and happy to have Maureen Lamb return to us as our guest presenter this evening. She did an excellent webinar for us the end of October on strategies for teaching virtually, as well as face-to-face. So this evening, she's really going to focus on a variety of the Google apps that enhance student learning. Maureen has been teaching for 14 years, and this is her 5th year using the Cambridge Latin course. She teaches at Kingswood Oxford School in West Hartford, Connecticut. And she, as you can see on the screen, she is the language department chair, the academic technology coordinator, as well as a Google certified trainer. So she can answer all your Google questions, and she's got lots of terrific things to show you this evening. We are recording this, and the link will be posted in a few days on the cambridgelatin.org Cambridge Latin website. That's the NACCP website, as well as cambridge.org. So there will be lots of places for you to get this if you want to go back and revisit any of the slides, etc. And if you by chance need a professional development certificate for this evening's webinar, just please email Jenny and me at clctraining@cambridge.org, and I'll get one out to you ASAP. And Maureen, take it away.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everybody. Today we are going to be, and I just love that gift, that's fun. We're going to be talking about Google Apps and add-ons. And these are all free accessible apps. Some of them have paid versions as well, and I will alert you to that. The things we will be focusing on today are Classroom, Drawing, Jamboard, Forms, and Slides. I want to be very mindful. If you want to keep your camera off, feel free to use the chat to communicate. And if you would like to follow along on slides, feel free to go to the link here. It's tinyurl.com/Cambridge Happy New Year. So please feel free to go there if that is more convenient for you. All right. So I'm going to go through each of these apps, and then I will pause for questions. However, if you have questions as we're going through, feel free to stop me, ask a question. I'm here to help you. So even if we don't get through all of the slides tonight, these slides do have links to templates, which could be helpful to you. All right, let's get started. Who here uses Google Classroom? Can I get a show of hands or reactions? Okay, great. So this is just some thoughts about organizing Google Classroom, adding emojis to Google Classroom, and one of my favorite things now to use in Google Classroom, Moat. So here are some different organizational strategies for Google Classroom. One of the things I work with teachers on a lot is, how do I organize this in a way that makes sense for me? And ultimately, even though I'm going to show you a lot of different ways to organize Google Classroom, what works best for you and what works best for your students is really what works best. So if any of these appeal to you, by all means, please try them out. However, on the whole, if it works for your students, it works for you, that's what makes sense. Oh, okay. I'm going to put the tiny URL link. That's a great idea, Elizabeth. Thank you. Into the chat.
Yes, because I was having the same problem remembering what you said.
Sorry. Here we go.
We're tired. It's the end of the day.
There you go. I don't think that'll actually be a link, but that'll show you what to go to. No, that's wonderful. Thank you. And so the first way is organizing by week. This is how I used to organize my Google Classroom. And there are some pros and cons to it. One is that it can keep you organized with students, but my students didn't like scrolling down week by week. So I ended up having to flip the topics every week, and that got a little bit cumbersome. Another way is to organize it by unit, and then I would archive the units afterwards. And so I liked that, but I also liked doing it this way, but again, I would have to flip the units. Organizing it by file type. I do something that's sort of this. I organize it by assignments, homework assignments, choice boards, wayfinding docs, Quizlets, Flipgrids. There's just a lot of different things in there. So this is somewhat like how I do it. I do it a little bit by lesson and topic as well. I use these as separate ways to do it, but it's also doing it. So I use it by lesson and topic as well as doing by file type. And finally, organizing by emojis or abbreviations. Who here knows you can use emojis in Google Classroom? So fun. I love doing this. It is awesome. And so I'm going to go into this a little bit later, probably on the next slide, about how to add emojis. So if you're going to be adding it from a Mac or an iOS system, for your smartphone, it's that little thing that looks like a globe with a grid on it. But if you're doing it from a Mac, you can use Control Command Space for the Apple emoji keyboard to appear. And as you can see, the picture on the bottom, the little globe with the grid on it, is how you can open it on your tablet, if you have an iPad or something like that, or on your iPhone. So that's the way you can make it appear if you have a Mac or iOS. And why would you want emojis on Google Classroom? Well, I find that when students are looking for something like a homework assignment or when the next assessment is, if you have it organized by picture, I feel that students are more likely to look for the picture. So let's say every assessment is a light bulb. So then whenever they see something posted that has a light bulb, they're like, oh yeah, okay, assessment. Or if you have something posted with a book and they know that's homework, they'll say, oh, okay, that's the homework assignment. So it's just another way to differentiate all of the different things that are posted on Google Classroom. Because if you're anything like me, you post a lot of stuff on there. And so it's a great way to stay organized. Now, for those of you who are not Mac, for PC and Androids, there are 3 possible ways. You can press the Windows key and full stop key together. Oh, I see some questions in the chat. More emoji ideas. Yes, I will definitely. So press the Windows key and the full stop key together, press the Windows key and the semicolon key together, or right click in the spot where you want to place your emoji. For devices such as cell phones or tablets, there's probably an inbuilt emoji keyboard that you can go to settings and turn on. Other things I do with emojis. I'm not going to get too much into it today because I don't have it, but you can have students retell stories with emojis. I'm actually having students do an emoji contest right now. I have a bunch of myths told only in emojis, and the students have to figure out what the myths are just by looking at the emojis. So that's fun. So doing a story retell or having students try to figure out what the story is using emojis is really fun. Students really like that. I also do this with GIFs. They love doing story retells using GIFs, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And finally, who here uses Mote? So for me, I find that I am not the greatest typist in the world. I know I do tons of tech stuff, but I type with one hand. And so I'm not a great typist. So I find it's much easier for me to give vocal comments for students. And so by using the Mote extension, I can give short comments to students. I have the free version, so I can only give 30-second comments, but I think it's better to give a bunch of 30-second comments than to give lots of long comments, but you can do whatever you want. The paid version is not that expensive if you wanted to get this. So if you do get Mote, it works for all sorts of shared documents in the Google Suite. It works for Google Classroom. It works for Google Docs in comments, and it also works in Google Slides for comments. So it can be a very useful tool to record. And so I've put the link here to Mote so that you can download it as an add-on. Let me see questions. Oh, Jennifer Jones, do you know if kids can tell a story with Chromebook emojis? Yes, I think so. And yes. Oh, thank you, Natalie. Yes, students are, I find that they really like listening to feedback. Another way I give feedback that I'm not going to get into today because I know a lot of people can't use it, unfortunately, is Flipgrid. I find that students really, if I make a little video for them on Flipgrid about how they did on a project or something like that, they're more likely to actually watch it, and I can see if they went in and watched it than to read anything I write. So it's very helpful. If you want to learn more about Flipgrid, let me know. I can get into that another time. Okay, next, who here uses Google Drawing? I love Google Drawing. It's so much fun, although I think Jamboard has replaced it in my heart. Oh, I see something in the chat. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Natalie. That's awesome. Oh, Jennifer, it may not be turned on in your Chromebooks. You have to turn on the emoji keyboard in the Chromebook. That's a good point. So as we go through Google Drawings, we're going to go over how to do cartoons, and I'll provide a cartoon template, posters, smash doodles, which I started doing last year and which are so much fun, whiteboard problem solving, and directions or timer add-ons. And I'll explain what that means. So this is a cartoon, and the reason I like doing cartoons in Google Drawing is students can alternate between adding pictures and drawing themselves. So both of those things are fun. And I think that students enjoy it. And if you can't tell, they're being very clever with Mercury and the periodic table here. But it's neat. And I really like that students can retell a story in a way that isn't translating. It's giving them an opportunity to artistically show a story. That's a good question, Katie. It is easier to draw in Google Drawing than in Slides. The reason it's a little bit easier is because there's a lot more options. So we can take a look at that for a second. Can everyone see the cartoon template?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you can change the different types of lines, which is exciting in Google Drawing. So you can do different types of lines. You can also layer picture on picture. So let's say I wanted to do a picture of something like, I don't know, farm background. Oh, it's not letting me. There we go. So now we've got a farm. Cool. We're going to insert that farm. And then, okay, insert. Hello, farm. And now I can layer a picture on top of you. So let's say I want to put a cow on that farm. There we go. Here's a cow for that farm. And so unlike Google Slides where things go over each other and kind of disappear or don't look as good, here you can do more of a collage type thing. You can layer upon layer. So that's one of the reasons I really like it. It's also, students find it easier to draw, I find on this, especially if they have a tablet, they can download the app. Same with Google Jamboard. They can download the app, which is really helpful. So feel free to copy this template, use this template if it works for you, or contact me if you need a template with more things that you want to talk about. This is something you can absolutely use. And again, I love using this as a comprehension tool for students to see if they understood what will be done. Oh yeah, all the templates are on here. So if you go to this presentation, you should be able to click through all of the templates. So if you have the link to the presentation, which I'll share again at the end. All right, wonderful. So I use Google Drawing also for posters or brochures for various reasons. So another thing that I do, the reason I have a Greek vase here is my students do a Greek vase project where they have to label in Greek the different characters that they think are depicted on a Greek vase. It's a very fun project. And I also use Google Drawing for that. Let's see, question in the chat. Oh, great.
I just was putting the link.
Oh, thank you so much. So here's a couple of samples. So this is an example travel brochure. And so this would be an example of some sort of travel brochure that my students are making. Right now they're doing travel brochures to the 7 wonders of the world. We're using amazing Orbeez so they know exactly how long it will take to get there. And my students we're trying to use persuasive language and adjectives. That's what they're focusing on here. And they had to use at least one superlative, which we've been working on as well. And so they were having a lot of fun with this. So this is an example of this. And if you wanted to use this, feel free to make a copy of it and delete anything you want and add anything you'd like as well. Here's another sample. So this is something I made for my other role, which I used to be an instructional coach. I made a coaching poster. It's really easy to make a poster here. This isn't the greatest poster in the world, but you can see that if you get a background photo, you can do cool things with it. You can modify the text, you can move stuff around. And again, like I showed you can layer picture on picture. Another thing I like to do is sometimes I have students, actually a lot of the times I have students illustrate Google Slides, and sometimes they don't want to illustrate right on Google Slides. So what they'll do instead is they'll create their illustration on Google Drawing and then take a screenshot, which they'll then insert as if it's a picture into the Google slide. So again, Google Drawing is good because it gives them a little bit more freedom with that. Okay. Smash Doodle. I love Smash Doodle. It's so fun. It's a kind of what I have students do is something akin to kind of a collage type deal. And so I used the example rubric here of how I have students do a Smash Doodle, but really it's adding pictures. This particular student chose to use pictures from online. I've had other students who choose to draw all of their own pictures, which is stupendous, and they have to use words or phrases in the target language that they're supported by them. And I have some students who are actually very good at sketchnoting. I am not very good at sketchnoting, so I would not be doing that, but I think that can be fun too. So it's a way of retelling the story using words and pictures that they find most relevant or that they find that kind of stick out to them from the story. Sometimes it'll just be pictures and a bunch of quotes. It just depends on how they want to represent the story. And I think it can be really freeing for them. And I've had students do it to do a story from Cambridge. I've had them do a chapter from a novella. And I've even had them do full novellas when they do it for free voluntary reading. So all of the above. So whiteboard problem solving. Again, something you can do is share a copy of something on a whiteboard. Let's say you want students to, what I've done before is have students do some scansion. So what I'll do is I'll type a bunch of lines on here, et cetera, you know. So then I would have students use the line function and kind of just, you know, do their lines and their carrots and stuff like that. And I'm just putting them randomly here. But I could push out a bunch of lines to the students to work on. So that's what I would do. And then students would share that back with me. So that's a nice way to do it if you have a virtual whiteboard activity. I've also done it where I've shared, I'm going to show you another way to do this with Google Slides. But in the past, I've shared a map with students and had them label the map in Google Drawing. I like to do it with slides now because I end up doing it as a drag and drop activity. But you could also do drag and drop activities in Google Drawing if you wanted. So it's really up to you. The other thing I wanted to show here, same with the sample drawing. Oh, question, let's see. Oh, interesting. I actually have been using, I moved to using Jamboard for Scansion just because it's so easy for me to click back and forth between the students' different jams. So what I'll do is I'll make one kind of master jam, and my first jam will be directions of what students are supposed to do. Then I will put also which jam they're assigned to. So let's see, Johnny's jam number 2, Maureen's jam number 3, and et cetera, et cetera. And so then they'll all be working on their scansion at the same time, but I can click around to see their jams. They're different jam numbers. Yes, so I would do, so page 1 would be jam number 1. Page 2 would be jam number 2. That's right. And I'll show that when I go over Jamboard. Ooh, how is it better than Slides? I will show. For Google Drawing, it's better than Slides because you can do more of the collage type things where you do fun layering and shapes and lines. But for Jamboard, there's a lot of different things. Now, Google Drawing is sneaky. You're not allowed to insert a video into Google Drawings. So the way you get around it, especially if you want students to do something with a timer. I love virtual timers. I think they're really fun for students to keep them on track, and also you can find fun ones out there. So let's say I wanted to put a timer into my Google Drawing. Let's say, 20 minutes. Oh no, 5-minute timer. I really like to keep anything I'm doing with students to about 7 minutes max, if at all possible. Cool thing about, by the way, video curation in Slides, which is we're going to talk about earlier, later, we're going to do format options for videos. Ooh la la. So what you can do here is you can copy it. And then even though you can't add video, you can paste it in here. So let's say you wanted students to work on their scansion for 5 minutes. You can paste it in here, and then the 5-minute timer will go on so they can keep working for 5 minutes and they'll know when time is almost up. I find that this is really helpful, especially when I'm trying to get through things quickly, to offer students the option to have a timer. So I add timers to Google Slides. I add timers to Google Drawing. I haven't figured out how to use a timer yet in Jamboard, but if I do, I will, because that's fun. I don't think it's available yet. Oh, good question. So Jennifer Jones says, can I show the timer in their Zoom breakout rooms? So what I do, Jennifer, is I actually put the timer on every student's thing that they're working on. So if I have students on breakout rooms, they're usually working on slides. They would click start. You can have it start automatically in Slideshow. You can use that as an option. We'll look at that in a few minutes. So it's a good way to keep students on track. And I'll delete this. There we go. Okay, let me go back to present. Okay, next, we're going to move on to some Google Forms. Who here uses Google Forms? I like them very much for quizzes. I think they can be very, very useful. But I'm going to show you a couple of things that aren't quizzes. I'm going to show Choose Your Own Adventure, an end of week check-in, and Mad Libs. So I don't know about you, but I love Choose Your Own Adventure as a little kid. I just thought it was great. Oh no, access denied for the cartoon template. Oh, please let me know afterwards. I'll check it. It should, that's weird. Okay. Are you on a school computer that maybe I'll check it. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so here would be an example of Dinosaur Island Choose Your Own Adventure. So this is a Choose Your Own Adventure I made for students about Cloelia. And so they would read the Latin and then choose something to do with that Latin. And so, and then I would have them say why they made this choice. So let's say a student chose this, it would take them to a specific next category. And there was death in this one. And not all of them, just some of them, but most of them led to death. Usually I do more fun ones, but this was when we were reading the novel Cloelia, and it was just, we were doing silly things. But yeah, so this is a way to do it. And what you do is every answer leads to another question. So for example, if you choose this answer, you go to question 3. If you choose this answer, you go to question 4. If you choose this one, you go to question 5. So you modify it so that you can go to each answer. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Matthew, for letting me know. I will check that. All right, so that's how you do one type of Choose Your Own Adventure. We're going to do another type. End of week check-in. I've been doing this year, and it's been super helpful for me just to check in with students and see how they're doing, because, oh, okay, sorry, yes. So what I really appreciate is, well, I appreciate that students will actually fill this out, because I don't get to walk around. I'm teaching remotely right now, so I don't get to walk around and chat with them the way I would in a normal year. And so I have students fill this out if they want to and see how they're doing. And then I ask them to write, this week I learned, this week I was successful with, next week I want to work on, whether or not they completed their assignments, and what they would like their teacher to know. I feel like that's probably the most important question I ask. I've gotten all sorts of answers, and I think it's been really powerful and important for me just to know where students are and to know how I can help those students. So that's been really helpful. So end of week check-ins. I think I will continue doing it even past the COVID era, because I think it gives them a lot of opportunities to share what's going on with them. And so we had a question about how to get feedback. So there are a lot of different options for students to get quiz feedback from Google Forms. You can have students automatically get the answers when you're doing a quiz of a Google form. You can have students, you can have it so that students do not get their answers, so that you have to reach out individually. Without email. Oh, interesting.
Our district has their email addresses turned off. And I have been going round and round with them about this, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't figure out another way for them to receive feedback on a form individually without email. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but you can, as Katie wrote, you can do immediate feedback with each question if you get it right or wrong.
Right.
But
and
yeah,
that's like horrible for a quiz or a test. I wouldn't want to have to do that.
No, I'm trying to think. You can export the answers in a Google Sheets, but I'm not sure what extension or add-on you could get that would not be email. Shoot.
Well,
are you allowed to?
just think about it for me.
Will do. I'm gonna write that one down because that's a tough one. Yeah. Okay, let me think about that, Natalie. That's good. Okay, wonderful. Mad Libs. I love Mad Libs. This Mad Libs I did isn't particularly good, but I'm sure you can think of more clever ideas. I was trying to get students to answer these questions, but then I ended up putting it into another story. So it depends on what you want to do. It's just fun. It's a way to be creative with students. I did it another time where I was trying to get students talk about what happened last night, what happened the night before that. And we were kind of introducing In Catalinum 1. And so that was really fun to kind of pre-do those constructions using Mad Libs. So that was another fun way to do it. Now we're on to Jamboard. Jamboard's my new favorite. I mean, Slides is kind of my favorite, but Jamboard I'm learning to love as well. And so we're going to talk about how to use brainstorming on Jamboard, doing special person interviews, which I like calling personal interviews because everybody's special. So, personal interviews, and true or false, 4 corners, word walls, jumbles, and then doing picture, worksheet, or text annotation. I used to use Kami, but not all of my students can access Kami anymore because it's not free like it was in the spring. So now I've been using Jamboard a lot. I'll show you how I do that. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I will check the permissions on that one. Okay, so brainstorming docs. So I have 2 different examples of ways to do this. And since I first created this, there's actually been a wonderful update in Jamboard. And update is that you can add a picture as a background. So oftentimes that's what I do now so that students can't move around the shapes because they might do that a little bit not on purpose. So I'm just going to explain the jams again. So what I do with the Jamboard, like I do with Google Slides often, is my first one is a title slide that has directions. And then either when I do slides, I usually do a separate slide with all of the slide assignments. But here I have the jam assignments right on that first jam. That way students know which jam they're going to and what they have to do to answer questions. So here I had already put in these shapes and I had put in the questions. And for each of the text places where students were answering, I'll show you if there's one where a student didn't answer. Yes, so this is what I did here. I put in the different boxes here, and then I wrote, please type your answer here. And students would delete that and then put in their own answer. So that was really helpful for me. When I first started doing it, students started, hey, how do I insert a text box? How do I do this? How do I do that? So I've tried to make it as clear and painless as possible by saying, please type your answer here. And I've also done different text colors. And I find that's really helpful for students to be able to differentiate between what is the question and what is the text color. If I were to do this again, I actually did this in the beginning of December before the Jamboard update. If I were to do this again, I would do this in a Google slide first, everything except for please type your answer here. I would take a screenshot of it, and then I would set the background by adding it as an image here. What I would do is I would now I had to get out of here. I would take a screenshot of the Google slide and then put it right in here so that students couldn't accidentally move around the shapes or move around the questions. So all I would end up doing would be adding the text boxes to each one. Now, Jamboard is a little bit funky, so I'm going to show you something about Jamboard. When you click this, you can see all of the jams. So if you click the little box here, you add another frame. So you add another jam here if you click that. What I like to do is do kind of one jam that has the questions on it and put in the text boxes, and then I'll make a copy for every student that's in the class. And copies are very easy. You go to the 3 dots and press duplicate. So I find it really helpful. I also, when the students are logged into it, you can see their little icons bopping around from jam to jam. So you know if, Sean is hanging out in Jimmy's jam, and you can say, hey, Sean, get on your own jam, get out of Jimmy's jam. So you can figure that out, which is nice. Same with Google Slides. Yes, students can type onto the same Jamboard. Absolutely, which is nice. So I've actually done that too. Now that Zoom has choose your own breakout room, which is amazing, I'll have the breakout room correspond to a jam. So I'll say, okay, breakout room 2, you're going to be doing jam 2. Breakout room 3, you're going to be doing jam 3. And I'll just tell them when I'm putting them into breakout rooms to enter in their jam number. So that works out pretty well. Excellent question. Okay, here's another example of a brainstorming doc. Again, these are December ones. This is pre the update, but I'll let you know how I would do it differently. Oh, come on, Jamboard, don't do this to me now.
Yeah.
Come on. Well, it doesn't seem to want to open. It really is a brainstorming session. For this particular one, I was trying to have students do all of the steps for their project. So basically I did all of the parts of the rubric and put them in a jam for each student. So I could go in and check and see they had research in one place, they had the sentences they were going to be writing in Latin in another place, they added their pictures. And so it was a jam that basically had them almost do the whole project on the jam before they did the project, which was super nice. It was a way for me to track their progress and see how they were doing as they were working in class. So I'm gonna actually get out of this because it's, yeah, it's not working so well. Sorry about that. Not sure what's going on there. I'll have to look at it. But I love it for brainstorming. I've had students do brainstorming of essays. I've had students do collaborative brainstorming. My advisees used it to come up with different ways they thought that people could be masked on campus more effectively, and they all contributed to the same Jamboard. The one thing I didn't show with Jamboard is using sticky notes. And that's something I've moved away from because I like when students can type right onto it. But sticky notes are another way that you can do this. Okay, now this one's, oh, no, it did work. Of course, I'll show you with another one. So here's the special person interview. I know people do this a lot of different ways, but what I like to do is have students interview each other and then say it to the class. Or I'll show you a special thing I did here. So I had students interview each other and put the answer of their partner on the Jamboard. Okay, it's thinking. Okay, wonderful. So again, for my first jam, I like to have the directions and then the partner assignments. And then I had students write what they thought for these questions. And so they had to put, they had the questions there. These people deleted the questions, but these did not. So you can put what your favorite type of music is, what's your favorite type of book, and who is your favorite artist, which they had so much fun with. I was setting this up because I'm going to be using it more for asking questions in Latin, but it was the first day after break, so I was having them kind of get to know each other a little bit and have fun. And so we went through here, and some of them chose to answer using sticky notes, which was great. So to use a sticky note, you press this, and you can color code the sticky note. Something that I saw on Twitter the other day, which is so cool, is someone is doing was doing sticky notes, but using like red for no, yellow for I maybe, and then green for yes, and having students respond to questions. I thought that was so cool. So that's another way you could use the colorful sticky notes. Okay, so then what I did to do a little bit of fun with this is I actually took the answers that, oh no, I didn't want to go to that, but if you want to go to that, go for it. This explains the special person interview. So I asked this, so what I did was, as you're doing the special person interview, I went through and I grabbed statements, and I grabbed what different students said they liked, or I made up what different students said they liked. And it was so fun because then students had to say whether or not they thought it was true or false. And so there was a bit of setting up here. What I had to do, I thought, to be most effective would be, and you can do this with sticky notes. You can have students write their own names on a sticky note, but I was pressed for time. So what I did was I created an image of each student's name that they could drag around the Jamboard. And I can make a copy of this, so I won't have to do it again. And so I took this phrase from the special person interview, and then students had to say whether they thought it was true or false. And this was really fun. Some of the students put them back afterwards. They were very tidy with it. But it was just a neat way to engage them after doing the special person interview and to have them practice with this. Because again, when I do true and false questions, they'll mostly be in Latin. So just having them practice what that's like to move their name to one section or the other was really helpful. And students really liked it. They like the idea of moving things back and forth. They find it very satisfying. Oh, this is a four corners game. So this was something I played somewhat successfully. I figured out how to do it better. So I'm going to share it with you and share that the first time I played it, it was not great, but it got better. So let's see. So here for each jam, I would have a different question and students would have to place their bet to answer the question. And we were reviewing first declension nouns in Greek. And so here are students pulling the different coins over from their bet. And I made a little bank at the bottom that had extra coins. And so here are, again, this would be a multiple choice question where students would pull their coins in to bet on their answer and pull it back. And so again, it was really fun. One note was, can we make coins in higher denominations so we don't have to have so many coins? And so that's something I will definitely change for next time. So if you're interested in a modified template of this, let me know. But again, what they would do is I would ask a question. I had the series of questions on Google Slides that I was projecting to the students, and then they were pulling things onto the Jamboard. So it was fun. They enjoyed it. It didn't, the first round, I didn't really understand what I was doing, but then I understood and it got better. Word walls. Oh, question, let's see. Ah, okay. So they would actually be putting their answer. So they would say how many coins they were betting. We were doing it orally the whole time too. So for example, Mary would say, I'm putting 1 coin down on alpha. And so that's how we were doing, they were narrating the whole time. That's a great question. So word walls are something I really love to do, especially when I'm teaching Latin 1 and Greek 1. And so here's an example of a word wall. And what I would do as I was doing this word wall is this would be the stories that we're reading. And if you're looking for easy Greek stories, I have a bunch I'm happy to share. So these are words that came from the Greek stories that we were reading. And the students would add them as we came across them and they didn't know them. And then gradually they would start deleting words as they came to know them. And so that was something that's been very helpful to me in Latin 1. It's been very helpful to me in Greek 1. And I think it's a helpful thing to have. And if it were a normal school year, I would have this on the whiteboard in the front of my classroom. But because it's not a normal school year, we don't have that luxury. So instead, we've been using Jamboard whiteboards. And it's actually really nice because then they can go back, they can reference it, they can say, oh, we all know what Hellenic game means. We can take that off of there. So that's been good. Jumbles. My students, some of them were extremely neat with their jumbles, some of them less so, but it was really fun for them to do this. I think I might do it differently next time, but I was doing it with students who were very familiar with using the sticky notes. So what I did was I put all the pink ones over here with the Latin, and then I put all the green translation phrases over here, and then students had to put them together. And I put the Latin in the middle here so that the students could all see it as they were going through. And this is one thing you can do with the sticky notes, which is nice, is make them really small. So you can do it in this nice tidy thing here. And some of the students put it in order, but some chose not to, and that was fine. So this one's completely in order. But it was really interesting to see how students organized it. We were talking about that, like gave me some insight to how they're organized, which was fun. But I really like jumbles. You can do this in a lot of different ways, like putting pictures in order. You can do it in having students put an order of events together. There's a lot of different ways to do jumbles with Jamboard. So I would encourage you to explore those functionalities. So this is something that's been super helpful to me, especially since I'm having a bit of trouble using PDF readers. So what I'll do is I will use, this is a screenshot, And students could label this using sticky notes. So let's say they wanted to say that this person is Aeneas. So they could make the sticky note probably smaller and then label Aeneas. But you could label anything in Latin. So Aeneas leaves with his family. Aeneas is in Troy. You could add phrases. You could add sentences. You could have students read a passage and then illustrate a picture. And again, all I did was take a screenshot of the picture and add it as a background. So this is something that could be very helpful. Another thing I like to do is use it for text marking up. So let's say that students were going to be talking about this text. I could have them underline things like, oh, I have no idea what indicium means. Can we go over that? And they could ask questions using the sticky notes like, I don't know what this means. So as we go through a text, students can use these to ask questions. They can use it to mark up the text and things like that. So I think that could be really helpful as well. Another thing is tried and true worksheets. If you have a PDF of a worksheet and you can't hand out worksheets, like right now I'm completely remote, so I can't hand out worksheets I would usually hand out. By the way, this is fun and hard if you want to try it. But I would have students do this, and then what they could do is, I don't actually know what this is, but let's pretend it's Jingle Bells. You could have students type their answers. And it would probably make sense to do caption text here because it's so small. You can, by the way, you can change the text. So right here, you can make it huge with display text, title text, subtitle text, normal text, and caption text. So again, you can do this if you wanted to with worksheets and make a copy for each student of this jam on Google Classroom. So they could fill it out as if they would fill out a worksheet. And what I would do if I were making out a copy for each student, I would put in a textbook and put type answer here so that each student would know where to type their answer for that question. And so this would be filled with text boxes for students to do. And I might color code it too. I might make the first one red, the second one blue, just so students can see the difference and differentiate between them a bit. Okay, any questions on Jamboard before we move on to slides? Oh, is somebody asking a question who's muted?
Judith, unmute if you're going to say something.
Sorry about that. I thought I did with my space bar. When you're in Jamboard, can you copy and paste the text boxes to save some time?
Oh yeah,
Good.
absolutely. You go to duplicate. It's super easy.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like it. And again, it's been a lifesaver for me with things like worksheets or things that would be more static in the classroom.
No, you've already given me an idea for a review for Monday. So it's
Oh,
great.
fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Wonderful. Okay, so Google Slides, I know I've seen many of you before at my Google Slides presentation, so I'm not going to bore you. I will go over a lot of new things, but I also have, I know last time I didn't include templates to everything, so this has templates for all of these things. First, we're going to talk a bit about curating videos and video editing. We're going to talk about Storybook. Oh, hold on one second. Oh, Ed, you're right. But Katie says, if people are turning worksheets into slides or Jamboards, can we share them via the big slideshow? Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, big spreadsheet. Oh, okay. So what I actually have students do sometimes is take a screenshot of their Google Drawing or Jamboard and put it into Google Slides. So that's what I thought you were talking about. But if that's okay with people, that might be a good idea to turn worksheets into slides or Jamboards if we were going to do that. So we're going to talk about video curating and editing, storybook creation, peer editing. What do you prefer? Which was a lifesaver as kind of an icebreaker all at the beginning of the year for me. Order of events and sorting, choose your own adventure, pictures with captions, the game of quotes, which a few of you have seen before, wayfinding docs, and choice board templates. So I was talking about video editing before, and I said I would get back to that. So let's talk about this. So let's say, for example, I was going to insert a video. So I'm going to insert a video, and I'm going to do a 30-minute timer. But I don't want a 30-minute timer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on format options, and then you can choose whether it plays automatically, if it plays when you click it, or if you manually have to press the play button. So you can either click the image to start it, or you can press play. Either way. I like automatically, but it really depends. So I can actually start this timer at 1 minute. So it's only going to start it at 1 minute. And you know what? I only want a 1 minute timer. So it's going to go to 2 minutes. So it's a 1 minute timer. Really, it should be a 0 to 1, but I'm just showing you could do that. You can also mute audio if you just want to show a video and have students figure out what's going on. I've used this for the target language when I'm doing movie talks with students. They can't see what people are saying, which is fun. So what you could do here is edit it so it's like that, which is wonderful. So I find maybe I want to show my students part of a Mary Beard documentary, but I want to edit it so it's only showing a little part of it. So I would put in the documentary here and then I would edit it. Now you can do this with videos from YouTube, or you can do this with videos that you've put in Google Drive. It doesn't work with any other applications that I'm aware of, but if you figure out it does, let me know, because I've been trying to figure out how to have it work with Vimeo. Okay. I'm going to go back to, whoops, that's not it at all. There we go. Okay. Next is storybook creation. So something that's kind of fun for students, I find, is to have them create their own storybooks if we're doing something. So I've had students read Ovid and create children's storybooks using simple Latin in Ovid. I've had students kind of retell stories from the text in a more simple way as a storybook. I've had students tell stories of adventures and heroes. And then it's so satisfying when you can print it out. So what you can do so that you can use Google Slides as an effective tool for this is go to File, Page Setup, and then change the format to 8.5 by 11 inches. So let me show you. File, Page Setup. Oh, we don't want centimeters, we want inches. Voila. And so then it can print. And we're going to get rid of that. But I think it's really fun. It's neat for students to be able to do that, and they can do it with they can do that so they can print out smash doodles that they make in slides. They can do it so they can print out all sorts of things easily that they make in slides. Because otherwise, I've had to print some slides for my daughter's first grade class, and it's been interesting. So I've been using that trick a little bit. Another thing is peer editing. So one of the things I like to do is assign slides through comments. So just like I would do for Jamboard, the first slide would be kind of a title slide, second slide would be directions, and then the third slide would be slide assignments. However, students don't always remember their slide assignments, and they will go back to the third slide to check it. So I do double. I put it in that slide and I assign it. So let's say I wanted to assign this slide. I said, okay, I'm going to do it in the comments here. And see, I can add a moat message if I really wanted to too. But I'm going to say @ and I'm going to say, I'm going to share it with myself and assign it to me. And so that person will be modified through email that they are the person in charge of that slide. The other reason why I make sure my third slide has all the slide assignments is because students can do this. And then it goes away. So they might initially see that their slide is assigned to them, but then they can get rid of it. So it's important to be able to have a backup for the backup. Another thing is I like having students, I assign the slide through comments, but then when students are writing, I'll have them do, let's say I'm having them do thesis statements for an essay. So then I'll have them write it on there, and then I'll exchange slide. I'll say, okay, slide 4, look at slide 6, slide 7, look at slide 5, things like that. So they can go check each other's work, and then they can comment on each other's work, which is really nice. And it gives them an opportunity to suggest things to each other. So that can be a really convenient use of that. What do you prefer? Like I said, oh my goodness, it really got me through so many things. I'll show you one example, but there's a lot more where this came from if you need more ideas. I'm sure you're more clever than I am about thinking about this though. I came up with kind of silly ones. So Quid Placket Tivy had them do different things. And so this is what I used at the beginning of the year. I said, I put them in either pairs or groups of 3. And they had 3 responses. They had 3 pictures to look at. And one of the pictures, they would have to say what they preferred. The second picture, or whatever picture I decided, they'd have to say what one of their partners liked. And the third one, they had to raise their hand. So it was different ways of engaging them, and as well as doing 3 different pictures. So do they prefer one alarm or many alarms? Many of them had many alarms. Do they prefer to read their emails or read all their emails or have them all in their inbox? Or the most controversial topic that's been all year, how do they slice their sandwiches? It was so interesting. People were very heated about this, and I was teaching Caesar, so I decided to use the cardinal directions for this. So I said, is it from north to south? Or is it? So I just kind of had fun with it, and because I was teaching them cardinal directions anyway. So this would be my 7-minute icebreaker at the beginning of class for most of the beginning of the year. Again, a lot of things, like I was told I was a monster for folding over pages. Ooh, but they were so funny about these questions. And so I've added to this doc a lot of questions that you can use, and you can modify this any way you want and use it in your own classes. So there are 5 samples there. And so one of the things I do for this is I pair up students in breakout rooms. Now I'm a hybrid teacher, so I teach students that are both in the classroom and students who are on Zoom. So when I would do this, I would make sure that students who are in the classroom were each paired up with someone on Zoom, if that could happen, and then the rest of the students in the classroom would be paired up with each other. That's just something to think about. For those of you who see my presentations before, I've done a ton of these before, so feel free to use these. A couple that I haven't shown you before would be map of Gaul. So for this map of Gaul, what I had students do, not Caesar. I didn't tell Caesar what to do. I wasn't that bold. Okay, so what I had students do is drag these different things onto the map. And so what these are shapes. So I would go to insert and then shape, and then I would color code the shape because it's this kind of, oh, it's already colored, that's good. And then I would write in it, because shapes in slides, unlike in Jamboard and in Google Drawing, are text boxes. So I could put Italia if I wanted to, and then, oh, there it is, I can move it over there. And so I would put these off of the page. So here, I'll show you. These, if I scroll down, these are actually off the slides. So you can, then students would have to drag them onto the slides proper. And this is nice. And again, I always prefer using shapes rather than text boxes, because I find that text boxes can be elongated. Excellent question, Jennifer. That was a Google image, yes. But if you can't find an image, you can always take a screenshot and upload it as if it were an image. That's how I do this with text. I take a screenshot of the text and then upload it. So that's a great question. Another one that I haven't shown, oh, arrows to text. So this is fun. I was doing relative pronouns, and if you haven't seen the high pause videos, oh my goodness, my students are slightly obsessed. But we did a lot of review of relative pronouns, and then with a partner, they had to draw arrows. And so I got to show them how to insert arrows, which is pretty easy, shapes and then arrows. So they had to do arrows from the antecedent to the relative pronoun. And they had so much fun with this. And they were excited. They said, Mrs. Lamb, I learned how to do something I didn't know how to do in Google Slides, because a lot of them didn't know how to make the arrows. So this was a lot of fun. It's something new and different for them to do. And it was interesting because they were using the text, keeping it in context. I think, oh, I don't know if I've shown this one, passing judgment. I think I've shown the other ones, which is why I'm skipping over them, but feel free to look at them at your leisure and copy them if you want. So for this one, they had to look through Caesar and find 4 words or phrases that demonstrate Caesar's opinion. And so let's see, where's one that, okay. So I put Latin diction and Caesar's judgment so that students could erase that and then write their own thing. And so students did that, and it helped get them ready for writing an essay. So that was fun. So again, feel free to jump through these, and if you have questions, let me know. Choose your own adventure. I've also gone over this in a Cambridge webinar, so I won't belabor it, but feel free to use the template to create your own choose your own adventure. It takes a little while, I won't lie, but it's super fun. And the template should make it a lot easier, because when I do it, I usually have to make my own template, but this is one that will automatically take you to places. So what you would do is, I have an intro story followed by the slide 3 story, and then you would change the text here. So feel free to use that. If you want to use the Pliny's Haunted House one, please feel free. Pictures with captions. So here's an example of pictures with captions. My students love these. And again, This is something where students are matching pictures to captions, which is fun. Oh, sorry. The name of the video I just suggested. Oh, the previous webinar I did here.
No, the Caesar, you're talking about something with Caesar. You said if you haven't used, when you're doing the arrows, is that gonna go?
I don't remember.
Something your students are obsessed with lately and they're having so much fun with?
High Pause does grammar review and it's really fun.
How do you spell that?
HI space PAWS.
Thank you.
It's fun. And feel free to, you could access it from there too. So here I had students take the cartoons from the Cambridge Latin course and they were pulling the text onto to match the cartoons. This was super fun. And this is the interesting one where the lady's jumping out of the egg. So they really enjoyed this. They enjoyed being able to match it and it showed their comprehension, which was neat. Again, I have a template for that if you'd like to use it. Game of quotes. I know I've done this one before, but I'm just going to show you because it's really one of my students' favorite things ever. And I promise I'll leave time for questions I apologize if I end up going over time a little bit. So what you do is students, this is students who are reading the last two sections. We read 2 stories and then they had to use quotes for each. And so in small groups, they had to decide what quote from the text might fit this best. So for example, a newspaper headline. And so these I put all off of the slide. So students would be able to type in here and then drag it onto the slide proper when they were done. And so here I've got newspaper headline, advertising slogan, et cetera, and I have a lot of other ideas here. If you come up with good ideas, let me know because I think I'm at my max for thinking of good ideas here. Okay, wayfinding docs. I've done this in another session, but just in case you want this template, I wanted to make it available to you. So feel free to make a copy. You can change these things on the side to be the correct dates by going to View, Master, and then changing it in the master slide here. So let's say I wanted to change it, I could edit it from there. And each time, if you're in presentation mode, each time you click on one of these dates, it will go to the slide that has that date. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. Oh, good. I got to the last slide. Awesome. Choice board templates. I know I've gone over this before, but I didn't give you the templates. So I've got the Caesar homework choice board, Flora's lava choice board, an editable choice board that I used last spring, but I'm also coming up with a new one, which is a modified IPA choice board, which should be available. Hopefully, I'm working on it right now for an actual proposal. So we'll see. So I'm happy to share that as soon as I have that ready. But thank you so much for coming. Feel free to email me if you have questions. I will respond to email, maybe not this week because it's crazy, but next week. And please feel free to follow me. I put lots of stuff on my Twitter at Latin Tech Tools. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. A lot of information and thank you for sharing all of that with everybody. Really terrific.
Oh, I promised I would give you the link again at the end. Sorry, let me stop share so I can send that. So it's tinyurl.com. Oh, you already, Ginny, you rock. Okay.
Maureen, this is Amy Leonard. I was wondering if I could ask a question. I hope it's not a stupid. When I have used Google Slides, students maybe in breakout rooms to work together to do some of the types of things you were showing, you know, I don't want them to be influenced by anybody else's work. And so I've always kind of just made 8 different slides that have 8 different activities. Like they'll be responsible for illustrating the first paragraph of the story, but the next group does the next paragraph. Is it kind of assumed in both in Jamboard and in Google Slides that the students have to just stay on their own slide and not be influenced by somebody else?
That's right. That's right. And I think it's nice because they can, you can actually see their little icons moving from jam to jam or slide to slide. So if I see like, oh, Sean, you make sure you get back on your slide, or Mary, don't look at Olivia's slide. So I can kind of monitor that. It does require watching and making sure they're not moving, which is a pain sometimes, but I agree. They can be influenced by others, but really, they could be looking up stuff online. They could be chatting with each other on their phone. Like there's so many things they could be doing that at this point I'm kind of like, all right, well, I'll monitor it best I can and just see how we can do it. But I agree that is definitely a difficult thing about this.
Of course,
I've come to the realization that, you know what, that's okay. But I do that as well. I love assigning slide illustrations. So I have students do an illustration for a caption for something, and I would assign, let's say, first person gets 3 slides, next person gets the next 3 slides. And so then it's kind of a collaborative illustration of a passage that we read. So that's also a fun thing to do. And you can do the same assignment. But yeah, I agree. It's challenging.
Well, once again, we can't thank you enough for all those terrific ideas. And we thank each and every one of you for participating this evening and asking lots of good questions and sharing comments with Maureen. And have a good evening. Good night.